What is up, you guys? We're here for our weekly energy oracle forecast. Hope you're doing well. The weekly Torah / Zohar portion is Noach, which is Noah. And the theme is that we are to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, out of the box that we're used to being in, challenging our mindsets and our preconceived notions and our patterns, and pushing ourselves to do the spiritual work that doesn't come easy. It's like, if it's harder for you to do an act of charity, say, than giving 10% in a tithe, then maybe you have to get out and volunteer and do some charity. If you avoid confrontation and something you need to speak up for yourself or something in a situation, then you might be being pushed to use your voice and find a way to communicate your truth with grace and with love. And sometimes that takes a lot of practice. I am ungraceful all the time, so it's a work in progress. If you're the kind of person that wants to say something and you love confrontation, then maybe your act of spiritual work is restriction, right? If you're a workaholic, your work would be to give yourself rest and surrender and take Shabbat and take Sabbath. And that is an act of trust and faith in the Creator. But if you are a lazy person and you have a hard time being motivated and taking action, you're very passive and you want life to happen for you, then you need to push yourself and make the extra effort, right? So the work essentially is stepping outside of our comfort zone, in that we are challenging what comes easily to our nature, right? We're not here to think of ourselves as fully assembled and this is just who I am. This is just the starter package, and we can push ourselves to evolve and expand and fine-tune our gifts and fine-tune and expand our virtue and our wisdom and our capacity. But we have to push ourselves in order to do that. And so all of us have, a certain nature that comes easily to us, but it's how can we challenge that nature to be an even greater version of ourselves? We don't have to compare ourselves to others or the bar that's set for them. It's just that we are trying to fine tune and polish the vessel that we are. So the theme, getting outside of your comfort zone, pushing yourself, doing something that may not be logical or reasonable, but or reason oriented, but you know that divine inspiration is guiding you. And that's another thing this week is it's about being able to listen to that voice within and hearing God speak to you and trusting that voice and then acting on it. And it's interesting too, because last night's episode of Secret Teachings of Jesus, our Saturday night secret sermon, we were in the third portion of the Gospel of Mary, and this is the section entitled Jesus Bids His Farewell. So it was Jesus's kind of last words before he ascended, at least before he started coming back to teach the apostles. I think that would be the timeline. And the passage was so interesting, but it had everything to do with learning to discern that voice within and generally discernment. But last night was a great episode. It supplements, I think, this coming week's energy. And also, I always recommend the Kabbalah Center for daily Zohar portions. They're amazing. And you can go to their website. They changed it to where Kabbalah.com is now where they have their like master classes. And then One House, Kabbalah.com One House, that's the one that distinguishes. That's the one where like their Zoom classes and stuff are still on that site. So go to the One House membership site, and I think you can get certain things for free just using your email address. But if you want, I don't know if the Daily Zohar is part of the free content, but it's in the app. So they have their own app. And so the monthly membership, I think, is $49.99, and I've always loved it. You can have access to all their live streams and all their classes for the most part, and then anything that you have to pay, usually pay what you can, or some of them are set prices after that, but for the most part, the membership gives you everything. So that's where I do a lot of my classes, and where I take a lot of my classes, is what I should say. Who I study through officially. All right, let's get into the cards for the week. What do we need to be aware of that will help? Ooh, we're expanding. Yes, definitely. This is like we had planted the seed level of the year last week with our aligning with the energy of the first portion of Genesis, the creation. And there's definitely been these swirling creation energies in the air. And it, like, if you can take that disembodied angst and that energy and that all of that inside of you and channel it into something that you feel divinely inspired, to work on right now. If it's something that's dear to your heart and that you want to make happen, right? Like really pour into that thing. And I think that this week is a big week to set the stage for expansion. And the thing that helps us expand is when we can do that spiritual alchemy, when we can take our shadow layers and break through and break a pattern or break a long-held belief system, or an unconscious negative belief, right? Or a limiting belief. We can break a habit, or, do a different, choose differently this time around kind of thing. When we can change and we can truly transform, that releases this light from within us that was already there. It was just put under a veil, right? Don't hide your light under a bushel basket. Essentially, our layers of negativity create this veil, and it gets thicker and more dense. And as that gets thicker and more dense, we forget our true nature. We forget who we really are. We forget that potential. We forget our perfected spirit. So our soul and our spirit become separate, right? But as we do the work of awakening and expanding and elevating our consciousness, our soul and our spirit start to come back into union again. And our spirit is like the part of us that is already in that fullness of our potential, in that completed state. It's like the part of us that's like it's like a bit of God's pure light channeled through our personality without any fears in the way, without any defiled consciousness of negativity or fear or doubt or selfishness or anything like that. It's like our purest self without any fears, any programming, any insecurity, none of it, right? Just 100% untouched, pure light energy of God coming through your particular personality. Now, the soul is like the part of us that's got all the assignments, and it's the part that gets dinged up, and it's the part that's not necessarily perfected, that it's affected by lifetimes, and it's the part that carries those layers of darkness, and it's the part of us that also does the work to remove those layers of darkness. So the soul is like being championed by the spirit. And as we are able to transform and repair and correct the soul, the soul sheds those layers of negativity and is emanating that pure light from within again. And it's like layer by layer, we are making ourselves after the image of the Creator once more. Our acts may mirror His acts. So the effort that we make to heal and elevate and expand this week is going to expand our material efforts as well. It's like our spiritual work, the work that we put into actually changing our heart and our soul and our mind and our strength and our attitudes. That is the thing that's going to expand our outer circumstances, not necessarily grinding your nose to the grindstone and burning the wick at both ends. Like that, the physical material effort has to be made too, but it's like multifaceted. It's like you've got to hit it the best you can from every angle: spiritual, mundane, material, all of it. And then it kind of comes together in this mixture. But without the spiritual effort, even if you do all the material acts the right way and take all the action, even if you find success, it will still dilapidate and implode on itself, because the spiritual, the light, the inner foundation, the vibration that keeps it true on a core level isn't there, right? So without the spiritual work, we might be able to materially manifest something temporarily, but chaos will ensue and it will have a shelf life. However, if we manifest something through our spiritual healing and change on a vibrational, energetic, and consciousness level first, then the energetic level of foundation is there. And everything that's being built is emanating from that root. At the core, the vibration tells all. You can't fake vibration. And so if you are vibrationally at a root level in alignment with what you are creating and expanding, then you can manifest something and it actually brings fulfillment and it's sustainable and it keeps going as long as you put the effort in to maintain it. So potential for legitimate and significant expansion this week. Very exciting. Let's see what we have here. Oh, love. Awesome. This came up in my own personal reading too. So I think that this week is all about opening our hearts and expanding our hearts and trying to do things through love. Sometimes it gets so nuanced, right? The more that you learn and the deeper you understand things, then it's like your tests become more difficult and more confusing and more nuanced. And so it's like we have to really check ourselves. Are we speaking through love? And sometimes we have to call out the darkness in the world and speak truths. But even in doing that, like, we have to find a way that we're doing it from a consciousness of love. And I'm not perfect at this. I struggle with it too. I struggle with it all the time. And sometimes, like, I'll even be asking questions, trying to, like for instance, you guys know I don't like to comment and participate in the comments on social media. If you've been watching my content lately, or if you're a regular viewer, you know a lot about me and my quirks and my moments. So I don't really like to participate in the comments if I can avoid it, because every time it's like I'm a magnet for like the trolls of the world waiting for someone to say something that seems perfectly reasonable to me, and it is somehow like I Larry David every time. I become the Larry David of the moment. So I'm just like, it's just not worth it. I don't want to get into these things, these back and forth. It's not worth my energy. It's not worth my time. And so, but then sometimes I'm like, okay, well, is the work this time, because I don't want to get in the comments, am I hiding out in avoidance? So is this the time where I'm supposed to speak up and say something and, communicate one of the, someone's experience in life, right? Because like other people, like we're not that unique, right? If I'm experiencing something, it probably means that other people are too, right? So in this particular instance, it was, I was watching a dating coach's video today, and he's a really great relational intelligence coach. And he does a podcast with his brother and his wife. And he's very sensitive, like good person, like not, a manipulative sort of dating coach about like, power, control, any of that. It's just like emotional, relational intelligence, good, earnest people. But they get on the subject of, it had to do with like, I don't know, I guess it's not worth going on a tangent. I don't think about like the nature of the content, but I was chiming in about my own personal experience in relationships as it pertained. Well, generally speaking, it was about money dynamics and expectations and gender roles and things like that. And men were becoming disenchanted that women only cared about their money and that they expected them to be like pick up the tab or be providers or whatever. And I have always been someone who has been, I don't know, I guess someone who just feels like I want to pitch in, when I can. And I don't really have those kinds of like expectations on men. And then I have actually been demonized by my parents and criticized that I'm not, asking enough for myself and I, whatever. So I've seen all sides of this. Ultimately, I am more focused on someone's virtue and their personality and their values and love rather than how much money they make. And I always figure if we can just, at least maintain what we have, like if I'm coming in with what I have and you're coming in with what you have, and we can maintain that, we'll probably be at least a little bit better off, whatever, right? We'll make it. But this I have not been appreciated for being this person, and it has backfired many times. And so I'm like trying to find my way in this kind of like arena as well. And ironically enough, as a woman, even though I've always brought my half at least, and in uncertain times have taken odd jobs and done everything to like make sure we get by, like I have not necessarily had men that have been that way in the relationship. So I almost feel like if the roles are reversed in my experience, and I know I'm an anomaly, but I was doing everything I could in those relationships, and they ended up acting like I was this big drag and I wasn't an asset because I didn't make as much money as they went on to make through the progression of our relationship, that I was the one pushing them and they weren't ambitious for that. You know what I mean? So it's like, so they made me feel like I don't know, like it was all about the money. And I'm like, but wasn't it like roles supposed to be reversed? So anyway, I'm trying to communicate this again because I'm like, no one addresses this where it's like, okay, men who are successful want someone who's also on their level, but then like also like men who aren't making that much money. It's hard for everyone. And I'm like, where do I fit in? Like in the dating pool, like who am I supposed to go out with? Like, I mean, because like other schools of thought are like, yeah, if a man makes enough money, you shouldn't care what you make. Like if you, whatever. And so yeah, everything's changing, everything's in flux. So nobody, I don't know what's expected of me or like what's projected on me. I don't know. I guess it's so complex anymore, and I wish it didn't have to be. I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be about money. But nevertheless, I'm trying to like communicate this in a comment before on one of his videos where this topic came up. And I'm like, what about this situation? Like, how, guide me, give me insight of how to navigate this situation. And then this troll came in and was like, going at like so hard and so mean on me for being, like, I don't know, like this guy was unreasonably mean and cruel, and I threw it back at him. Honestly, I was just like, I went conservative back. Like, I just mirrored his energy and I rebuked him in the name of Jesus. And, I left it at that. Well, then on this particular video today that I'm watching, this like fast forward a couple of months, at the beginning of the video, the coach is like talking about something, and it's this subject again. And they're talking about like women expecting men to be providers or whatever. And they're talking about different areas of the spectrum. But then the coach was like, I mean, it's not like men just made this up. They just didn't invent it. And I was like, wait a second. Pause the video. And I was like, I think I have to comment here, because actually men did admit this. Like, for thousands of years, women have been forced to rely on men to take care of them, and even demonized whenever we would want to earn our own independence or be able to take care of ourselves or own land. Like, the women who were burned as witches in early colonial America weren't witches. They were called witches because they had valuable land that they inherited through like maybe like a husband dying or whatever. And so they had valuable assets, and they were murdered, and their assets were stolen from them. That's historically what actually happened. So I'm like giving like these like examples, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, men have been in charge like for all this time. Like, women were only allowed to get a credit card by themselves in the United States, like starting in the 1970s. So it's like, basically, this is the system that has been set up and like pushed on us and forced on us. And now that people are starting to be like, all right, well, if you can't beat them, join them, I guess we're going to comply. And in some cases embrace it. And now it's like, we're being demonized for that too. It's like, what? Like, you can't win for losing. And so I'm just pointing this out, and I'm like, I still don't know like how to take in any of this or understand it, because I'm a woman who has always paid her half, and yes, also allowed someone to like treat me if they insist, but then, like, not expecting anything outrageous. And yet I still have not been treated or valued in the end like the same way as these women who demand that they are taken care of, and they're valued because of it. So I'm like, what can you please like comment on this? But then, okay, so this was early in the video. So then later in the video, he's like, and look, I appreciate that we have lots of different people from all walks of life, and men are watching this too now. And I'm glad to see that people are debating in the comments, and then he goes on to like basically scold people for being toxic in the comments. And I'm like overly paranoid, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, was I toxic? Like, am I toxic? Like, I don't want to be toxic. But at the same time, I don't know how to communicate these things in any other way, but just try to communicate what happened in my experience. And please, you're coaching, please, can you discuss this topic, right? So it's like, we have to be extra vigilant how our consciousness is arranging things, how we're perceiving things, how we're commenting and questioning, and like how we are being interpreted, like our energy. We need to make sure on an energetic level we're rooted in love, and that's what we're putting out, because like we've talked about it recently, this year the numerical value of the year is the same as the numerical value of the Hebrew word judgment, of din. And so the seed level of our energy, when we take action, when we communicate things, it's like it's going to have instant backlash. It's either going to yield blessing or yield some chaos, right? So we need to be rooted in love. But if we are, look, we have reward. We'll be rewarded. We will be blessed. We will have growth here. So it's just continuing to make an effort. It's like that's what truly counts. Having to strain to lift the heavy lifting of making an effort and then barely improving, but it was so hard for you. That's good. That's almost reveals more light than something coming easy and then you sticking the landing and getting the gold medal. Like for the upper realms, it means more when you have to put in the effort and you're not certain, and you have to take a chance and you have to risk the mistake. Right? Because then it's like, if we're too awake and we're too aware, then we're almost not even practicing free will. It's like when my Kabbalah teacher recently was explaining that if we could perceive the true light of the Creator, the reason why the soul, like when people are like the places in the Bible where it talks about how if you look upon the face of God, you wouldn't be left standing, or you wouldn't exist anymore, you would be obliterated. And it's not because we would be wiped out in like a malicious way. It's because the soul would have no reason to stay in the body. There would be the soul would not be attached to the material at all. It would see the gloriousness of the fullness of that unconditional love and goodness, and it wouldn't have any desire to be in the material world. We have to be under the anesthesia of forgetfulness to maintain our free will. So a lot of times, if we're almost too mindful and aware and present in the moment, we haven't forgotten. Like if we're in a simulation, right? If it were like a spiritual video game, or if we're taking a test, we're taking the test with the book open and we have our notes out, then it's like we're kind of cheating on the test, or like we're not really testing our true capability, right? If we're in Life the video game and we are absolutely aware that we're in it, then it's like we don't get lost in the game. When you're tripping, right, on psychedelics and you realize that you're high or you're tripping, it kind of like pulls you out of the spirit of it, the vision, the trip. It kind of like sobers you up by accident, right? So our forgetfulness in those moments where we're not thinking and we're not being perfectly mindful and we're kind of stumbling, but we kind of eke it out and we kind of pass the test anyway, that's better. That's an even bigger win than if we completely knew like every step we were taking, every move we were making, almost to the robotic degree. It's like that doesn't count for as much as if when we barely made it, but we made it, you know? So don't give up on yourself. Keep trying. Keep pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. You know, don't be afraid to fudge it up and make the mistake. Even if it means months and months and months, people replying to your comment. Like the comedians. If you guys, oh my gosh, there was a comment that I made pointing out something that I just felt was like socially irresponsible in lieu of the light of the situation right now in the US. And it's like people have acted like no one has ever had a conversation about being socially responsible in the media and like ever. And they're still going. And it's just about a comedy video that I didn't particularly think was like super hilarious that time. I just said like, should we consider this? Rake through the coals. Infected. So watch for what's infecting the seeds and the eggs that you're hatching, right? The seeds that you're planting, and it's in the consciousness, right? You know, we have to really watch out for that. But if we can be vigilant about guarding our heart, be vigilant. What is that? What's the verse? Or was it that philosopher that said it? I can't remember, but I think my ex-boyfriend from a million years ago had it on on his, written on his chest. It's like, guard your heart and mind with all vigilance. And that has to do even with the portion of Mary Magdalene's gospel, the Gospel of Mary last night. So that's definitely suggested. Go back and watch that. So yes, staying aware of the thoughts, the perceptions, the consciousness that is infecting our deeds and our actions, and infecting basically the ingredients through which we are creating with. Think about, like, the last thing I'll leave you with is the mental, like, vision of, if you've ever made a soup, you have to start with the mirepoix, and that's the flavor base, and it's onions. You got to cook down your onions, and you want them to be soft but not browned. And then you add in, like, your garlic and your carrots and your celery. And the thing is, if you singe or burn that initial, like, vegetable combo, the whole soup is gonna taste burnt, right? It gets into the whole thing. And that's our consciousness, right? As soon as we start having a negative mentality, it starts to defile the flavor of the soup, right? That we're making, and it's going to permeate it, and you can't get away from it. You can't get like a ladle of soup that's not burned. Even if there's no burned pieces in it, it's still going to taste burned, right? So think of it that way. All right, y'all, that is all for tonight. We've got expand, we've got love, we have reward, and we have infected. So this is what is going, like, the events in the week that are going to trigger us or provide friction. They're there to show us exactly where our consciousness is infected. You know, where are our mindsets? Where could they be adjusted, right? Where could we try to see the light instead of looking at the shadow? And I'm right there, you guys. I'm right there with you. You know, life is difficult these days, and it is hard to continuously find a silver lining every day. Some days are easier than others. Some days are the hard days, right? We just have to keep on trying to do better the next time, right? All right, much love and much peace until tomorrow, when we will have our weekly anchor message where we get our spiritual assignments for the week. Ciao.